Hey everybody, it's Jax again from the Popcorn Review Podcast. Today's will be my episode 76, AEW Dynamite from April Fools. And no one expected it, guys. No one expected it. At least I didn't. Who's back? Chris freaking Jericho. Makes sense. They were in Canada. Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken. Um, just didn't expect it. There were so many things going online that he was going to sign with WWE, that he had an extra 6 months added to his contract to AEW, blah, 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 blah. Chris Jericho is back. I think he had like a 10 to 15, maybe even 20-minute standing ovation. They were singing along to his song. He grabbed the mic, and all he said was, AEW, I'm home. So what does that say? All these online people were, what? Full of shit. Well, again, Chris Jericho's back. He actually interrupted the contract signing. So Tony Schiavone's out there, and fireworks went off, some music hit, and it looked like it was almost like a mistake. It might have been a mistake, but then all of a sudden, boom, Judas hits, and everybody starts going crazy. Even me, I was like, whoa, he's back. Like, I didn't expect it. Again, nice April Fool's prank. If you guys know what I mean, all the people were talking shit that he was leaving. But I do want to say, is Chris Jericho back to help out MJF? Because he did show up before hit the contract signing, or is he there for himself? You know, he was a learning tree before he left a year ago. What is he doing now? Why is Chris Jericho back? Is he there to help? Is he there to screw someone over? What do you guys think, guys? I'm happy to see Chris Jericho there. I know there's a lot of controversy going on with Chris Jericho. I grew up growing up watching him. Um, Hopefully he can do better. But again, Chris Jericho, nice to see you back. But what are you back for? Are you going to go back with Big Bill and Brian Keith? Are you going to do something else? Are you going to possibly join MJF and screw over Kenny Omega? Like, there's so many possibilities. Are you going to go and try to take Hook under your wing? Like, what's going on? Like, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. But finally, MJF comes out first, actually, you know, which I'm surprised because he's a champion, and then Kenny Omega right after. Um, and they're there, and Kenny's just all business. He was like, dude, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear you talk. I don't want to hear anything. I threw the pen for a reason. I signed the contract, just sign it so we can get this over with. But MJF, is typical heel fashion, gets up, starts talking shit. He says, yeah, but I heard from your doctors that your diverticulitis is back. And hopefully I said that right. That is back, that is causing him issues. So that's why he's pushing so hard to be champion, because he doesn't know how much time he has left. And I've said it in other videos. Kenny Omega, after having such a major surgery, he said removed about 2 feet of intestines. He's not going to be 100%. You know, a lot of people saying, oh, he's a part timer like Roman. Yeah, they both have medical issues. You know, Roman with leukemia, taking time off. Like he said, he wants to be a good dad. Kenny Omega, I don't think he has children, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody quote me if he does. I don't think he does. Um, but he does. He also has a major injury. We're lucky Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns can even wrestle personally. Um, they might be considered part timers, but guys, we'll be lucky if we get a few more years with these guys. So enjoy it while it lasts, because we don't know when it will be the last. This may be Kenny Omega's last run, and maybe he'll just be creative in the back or just a trainer, but we'll see. Um, and then Kenny kind of throws a jab at him like, yeah, but I also talk with your doctor too. So much for HIPAA laws. He says you have tiny balls and a small dick. So talk shit about him. But you did have MJF kept screwing with him. Kenny Omega finally flipped that table, about to get it going, but he was just trying to make him hit him so he don't have to wrestle him. Speedball comes in. Speedball says that this man is a living legend. This man is a god. But I do want to go back talking about God. So Kenny did tell MJF, you are always calling yourself the devil, that you're on another level. And people call me the god of pro wrestling. If it takes a god to beat the devil, then so be it. That was perfectly said. Like, come on. That was perfectly said. But Speedball does get involved and tells MJF, this man's a living legend, and you're not going to make him lose his shot. In fact, I want a shot tonight. How about me and you today in Canada? You know, the best nation ever, he said, because they're all from Canada for the most part. I think the majority of that roster or last night was from Canada. But yeah, you know, he says let's run it. You know, he says nah, you ain't gonna do it. He was like, I'm gonna do it. Oh, you ain't gonna do it. And he finally convinced him to. So that's gonna be the main event that night. There was actually a lot of stuff going on. You also had Will Ospreay attack John Moxley in the back. You had he also fought off Yuta, fought off a bunch of guys. Before his match, they also have a match later on. You also had Willow say that she has an open challenge um on Collision, which is actually today on Thursday. So I don't know if I'll catch that, but she also said that she has an open challenge for her TBS championship. A lot of people are speculating that it's going to be possibly Mercedes Monet, that it might also be Britt Baker. Regardless, either one of those, I'd be okay with. Honestly, um, I want to see Britt Baker back. We haven't seen her, I think, in like 2 years, or maybe a year. I think the last thing she did was she actually wrestled Mercedes Monet at first, and then didn't do anything from there. So, but Willow's really liked. I'm hoping her title reign is long. She just lost the tag team championships. So let's see how long her title reign is as a TBS champion. This is her second time now. But we'll see how that goes. Um, again, you had Copeland also with Christian Cage running around with chairs, rather, saying they're looking for FTR, and anybody who else gets in their way, they're going to take them out too. So Christian almost hits Renee in the head with a chair, and it made sense. Christian Cage and Adam Copeland are both from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Renee's also Canadian. So, like I said, a bunch of people that showed up last night were from Canada. Um, and Christian almost hits Renee in the head. He's like, "Really? You're gonna hit Renee? Really?" They end up finding FTR's locker room, get in there. They see Rapagi Vice, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero. And they're like, "Hey, man, what's going on in here? We're in their locker room. They're not here till tomorrow on Collision." He was like, "So if you guys want us to relay a message, we will. All right, send them a message." And they just beat the shit out of him with the ladders and said, "Let them know what we said." So really funny. They left the message, but we'll see how it plays out, honestly, because they're not going to be there till the following night. So I'm pretty sure, because what Cope said, will be at Collision tomorrow. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna run it back or run into each other at some point. Um, you actually had a match with Kenny Omega, uh, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Brody King versus The Demand. And honestly, guys, this match was kind of thrown together. To be honest with you, I understand why The Demand is there, going after what's his name, Jack Perry. But the other two didn't make sense to me. But I understand they're just trying to get trios. I don't see why the Demand doesn't challenge for the trios championships again, but we'll see what happens from there. But this match was crazy. The Demand was beating the shit out of everybody. Like Tony Leone, Brody King, he was beating everybody. Um, it was just pretty crazy, guys. Honestly, like this match was going back and forth. Kenny Omega and Ricochet had some great chemistry in that ring. Like they were selling for each other. They were doing the most. Like V Trigger, everything, one winged angel to each other, Ricochet jumping off the ropes. It was just insane how dynamic. And again, Ricochet can sell his fucking ass off. That's one of the biggest things that might have hindered Ricochet. He's so good at selling that they took advantage of him in WWE. Personally, that's how I feel. Ricochet came to AEW, feel like his gimmick is better. The group he has, the Demand is better. He's in charge of that group, which the Gates of Agony might turn on him in the future, because they did turn on other people on Swerve, about a year ago, 2 years ago. So Ricochet, watch it back. But his match was amazing, guys. Honestly, like as much as that match was thrown together to try to show the rivalry with the Demand versus Jack Perry, this match was insane. Um, Long story short, though, Kenny Omega gets the win over Ricochet, which again, tremendous match. Highly recommend watching it. Brody King takes out Tony Leone through a table rather, and it was just a great match. Don't know if this is going to continue a rivalry with them or they're going to break off and do their own thing, but good match. You had Will Ospreay versus Pac finally. Pac comes out first through the crowd. Will Ospreay comes out with his Assassin's Creed gear or jacket rather. And when he goes to like celebrate, Pac comes around somewhere through the crowd out of nowhere and like jumps him, power drives him into the ground right away before the match even started, holding his neck. We know he just had neck surgery. So everybody's like, damn, he's hurt already. They had a couple doctors, say, hey, you don't gotta go, worry about your health, worry about your family. He's like, no, I gotta get in there. So he gets in there and Pac attacks him again. They ring the bell. He says, yes, let's go. Um, these two guys can fucking go. Like Pac, we know can go. Ospreay, we know he can go. This is what the third time they wrestled. They said I think they drawed or tied one, and I think they're 1-1 if I'm not mistaken. So this match was insane. Wow. Ospreay is hurt, gets like a quick roll up, holding his neck. Pac attacks him after the match. He gets the better of him. Will Ospreay hits him with a hidden blade, but Yuta comes in. What's his name? Danny Garcia comes in. They pretty much beat him down. I'm surprised no one from the back came out to help him. But Mox does say, how do you think this was going to last? There's 6 of us and 1 of you. What do you really think is going to happen? So what does that mean? It sounds like Ospreay's going to get some help, but from who? He doesn't get help last night. They actually almost put his neck through the chair again and stomped the chair, but Mox was like, no, I want to see you in the ring 100%, so you have no excuse. Remember, this isn't personal. This is just business to him. But who's going to have Ospreay's back? Maybe Kyle Fletcher, maybe Ozzy Open. People online are talking. I just don't know who. Y'all let me know what y'all think, and we can have a conversation from that. You also had Mina with the Brawling Birds versus the Triangle of Madness. Now, commentary keeps talking about Mina is doing like an investigation of the murder of Tony Storm. But like I mentioned last week, I feel like Mina is the one who attacked Tony Storm. Personally, I think it's Mina, number 1 corporate, or Mercedes Monet as the second corporate, or it could even be Chris Statlander upset that Tony Storm is still over without the title. Those are my 3 picks. Y'all let me know what y'all think, but I think Mina's number 1 for being jealous. Mercedes is being number 2 for revenge. And then same thing, I think that Chris Statlander is jealous as well. So y'all let me know. But this match was pretty good. Sisters of Sin were doing their thing, playing that little card, the heel card. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually surprised at this match. I thought that Triangle of Madness was gonna win. Mina and the Brawling Birds actually take the win, with Jamie Hayter with her Haterade taking out Julia Hart. Like I said, yes, Tekla didn't take the pin, but her team lost. And I'm really high on Tekla's team with Jamie Hayter. Sorry, not Jamie Hayter. Julia Hart and Sky Blue. I want Sky Blue and Julia Hart to win the tag titles personally. But as big as the Brawling Birds are and how strong they look, they might be next in line. And then they might lose it, to someone else. But we'll see. Because Megan Bain and the other girl are big as well, too. So it's going to be like, you might hear meat chants during that match when they finally get to it. But we'll see what happens. Mina and her team does win. But again, I'm still a little skeptical about Mina. I feel like Mina is the one who's sending herself the flowers and took out Tony Storm. But people also think it might be Britt Baker. Some people are saying it's going to be Mercedes Monet. There's a lot of people it could be. But I gave you my top 3. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, and we'll go from there. Darby Allin actually calls MJF. He was like, yo, stop hiding behind the Don Callis family. Come see me in the ring. And what happens? The Don Callis family comes out. They're like, hey, MJF said that if someone beats you at Collision, they'll be the number 1 contender. So he handpicked one person from the Don Callis family, and is it Andrade? If you beat Andrade at Dynasty, you have a match against the winner of Kenny Omega and MJF. And Andrade's like, what? What do you mean I'm picked? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't make this decision. So I definitely see there being some issues with the Don Callis family. Like I mentioned last week, Kyle Fletcher could be possibly gone. Takeshita for sure I see leaving. And it looks like Andrade's pissed off and he wants out too. So you could lose 3 guys or at least 1 or 2 guys within a year. So what y'all think about that? But he's not having it. They about to attack him. Andrade stays outside. Everybody else in the family goes around to attack in the ring. You have Brody King and Jack Perry actually save him. They get into the ring. They both look, they kind of like stare down Darby Allin because they had issues in the past. He's had issues with both. I think Brody King choked him out. And if I'm not mistaken, Jack Perry beat um, Darby Allin for the TBS championship, our TNT championship. I could be wrong, but let me know if in the comments. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. So they got history, but then Kenny Omega music hits. He comes out face to face with Darby, and they kind of had some words exchange. Apparently, he told Darby, "Hey, you could be champion someday. Don't slow down." At least that's what he said during the commentary. After that, you had MJF and Speedball that was announced that day or that night, that morning, for the main event. If Speedball wins, he gets a title shot after Dynasty, apparently, which kind of weird because they said the same thing about who wins out of Darby and Andrade, but it is what it is. MJF comes out in like a USA attire, almost like Apollo Creed rather. Comes out like Apollo Creed, dressed up in his USA trunks, Star Spangled Banner trunks, and he drops to his knees to celebrate, and boom, an American flag comes out with MJF's face as the fucking stars. This dude got some balls, bro. I'm actually surprised there was no fuck ice chance, but I guess they're in Canada, so they don't give 2 shits about that personally. But it is what it is. You also had after he came in, you had Speedball come out with a Canadian flag, and he was kind of dripped out in red and white colors too. So um they were both representing their countries pretty much, which was kind of cool. Even though MJF is a piece of shit. But MJF attacks Bailey while he's like coming in, taking cheap shot after cheap shot, poking in the eye, mocking Bailey like with the Karate Kid crane kick and all that shit. But this match, honestly, MJF is just showing you how much he could work with everybody. Like, come on. He's beat like I mentioned, he beat what's it called? He beat Brody King. He beat not LA Knight. He beat Kevin Knight rather. He just beat Speedball, of course. We knew Speedball was gonna, but this match was good. This is showing you that MJF is willing to work with everyone, and he's about to wrestle with Kenny Omega in a couple weeks. Like, he's wrestling top talent. He's bringing up talent. He made Speedball look amazing. When Speedball was diving off the top, he was like, "Holy shit!" Like, he was just emphasizing and just bringing that out. Like, yes, we all hate MJF's character, but MJF is a tremendous performer. Like, you can't take that from him. Like, seriously, you can't. Um, Again, during this match though, Speedball did great. They kind of did the same thing with Kevin Knight. Well, Speedball, what they did with Kevin Knight, they were showing him like week after week. They won a bunch of matches and they lost to MJF pretty much. So that's kind of the same scenario that happened, but it's nice to see that these 2 guys are the future and they're putting them out in front. Like, yo, these 2 are the next ones we're building off of. They used to say that the 4 pillars used to be Darby, MJF, Jack Perry. Oh man, who's the other one? Oh, MJF, Jack Perry, Darby Allin. Damn. Oh, Sammy Guevara. He used to say those 2 guys were the 4 pillars to start. Seems like they got 2 new pillars. You know what I mean? Like Speedball and Kevin Knight. Like I mentioned before, Speedball took a minute for me to grow on, like for him to grow on me. Kevin Knight, amazing at the gate. And Kenny Omega's just praising both of them. Even though he's wrestling MJF in a couple weeks, he's praising how good MJF was in the ring. That's amazing to me. Like, usually they're like, "Oh, they suck, they're whatever. They're not gonna do it against me." But it was a great match. And again, MJF is showing you that he's willing to work with everyone, week in, week out. Yeah, he may not wrestle every week, but he's willing to give time, or at least putting time in. We can't say who's really in charge of what's going on every week, but is Tony Khan, but you know what I mean. But he's willing to work with everybody. MJF was once a young guy, and now he's working with the young guys. Yeah, that's amazing. Like, who can complain about that, guys? Seriously. Honestly, I can't. But MJF does attack Speedball after the match, and then who makes the save? Kenny Omega. And then you have at the end of the show MJF being triumphant, holding his title over his belt, or excuse me, holding his title over his head. But nice episode of Dynamite, honestly. Like I'm shocked. Some of these matches were almost like thrown together, but they were really good. Ricochet could work his ass off. MJF could work his ass off. Mean and the Brawling Birds work well together. Triangle of Madness is good. Like I can't complain about the show, and there was so much fucking going on throughout the day too. Like all the backstage segments. Like, come on, you can't complain about that show. That was amazing. I know people online saying, "Oh, AEW is all the same shit." Honestly, I feel like every week I'm watching something different. Yeah, it might be some of the same people, but they're wrestling different people. That's what I want to see. You know, build up. They're building up their stories like that. Dynasty is going to be one hell of a show. Um, I know they're going to have to compete with, I think, WrestleMania. I think it's this month, if too. I haven't watched WWE in a minute, guys. So I'm sorry. Just couldn't watch the show anymore. Just lost me personally after how they did Jay Uso dirty with Gunther. It was whatever. But tremendous show of Dynamite. Can't wait to see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great one.